In an age of information overload, storytelling is a key leadership skill. We've all been at the all hands meeting where the leader gave data point after data point, and we all walk away having very little clarity on why that was important and what the next steps are. Whereas in contrast, we've also experienced the leader who's been able to clearly articulate their message and also make an emotional connection to keep the audience engaged. This is the skill of storytelling. If we think for a moment why our brains work in story, over 100,000 years ago is when we began essentially distilling information from generation to generation through storytelling. And to put that into context, the first iPhone was born in 2007. So there's a form of communication which our brains really like. Our brains also like to fill in the gaps. Hence why a good story with a cliffhanger will essentially encapsulate us for days. We can utilize this as a leadership skill. Another benefit to storytelling is it produces certain chemicals in our brain. Chemicals such as dopamine and oxytocin will be produced when we are engaged in a good quality story. So how do we harness this as a leader? Well, there are a couple of things to be mindful of. A framework that I like to use with all leaders is what I call the drama triangle. And this helps you create the narrative in terms of your communication with team members. In that drama triangle, there's one of three roles that we can play in any situation. We can either be the hero, the villain, or we can be the sage. Now, unfortunately, for most leaders and managers who haven't grasped this skill, a lot of the time we either come out the villain or the hero. We don't want to play that role. We want to be seen as the sage, and our communication and how we tell our stories is critically important in embedding that with our teams. We want our team members to be the heroes. So even initially from a narrative perspective, ask yourself, are you showing up as the sage, the individual who helps guide and essentially gives autonomy to their team members? The second piece that I want you to think of for a moment is when you consider the jobs that need to be done, as a leader, are you focusing on the functional jobs or are you focusing on the emotional jobs? So for example, people don't buy the drill, they buy the hole in the wall so that they can hang the photograph of the family. Why is this relevant to you as a leader? Well, first of all, if you're showing up as the hero in the story, always the person doing everything, and also if you're communicating with your team based on the functional jobs, we just need to get through these different tasks. Well, unfortunately, you are not going to have a team that is bought in and connected with you as a leader. So your narrative has to be, first of all, I am the sage in this team. And second of all, I understand the emotional job that we need to do. So the functional job for your team members in a way could be the salary that they receive for the work that they do. The emotional job is your ability as a leader to connect with their level of purpose and what they actually are bringing to the role. The overall outcome, which is worth a lot more than what they get in terms of a salary. So straight away, your foundation has to be built on those two principles. I show up as the sage and I connect based on the emotional job of my team members. Next, we're going to look at a simple framework that you can implement to help you in terms of your own storytelling ability. One of the key points that I want to leave you with today is around how you structure your stories. I focus on 6 key ingredients when it comes to storytelling, and that first ingredient is structure. You can utilize this structure in both verbal and written communications. But it's very simple and goes like this. The first step is around the what. And the what gives context and clarity. Generally, we fall into the trap of information overload in this step. So what you want to be mindful of here is that you're essentially setting the scene and utilizing key pieces of data to do that without boring your audience. Because it's when you move to the second part of the structure that it really starts to connect. And that's what I call the so what phase. This is what's going to create the emotional connection with the audience. It's the emotional core. It's why it really matters to the people that you're speaking to. It's bringing in the emotional job, not just the functional job. If I stick with the what and I'm talking just about the functional element, I will lose my audience very, very quickly, whether it's a team member or a potential customer. So we have the what for clarity and context. We have the so what, where generally we don't spend enough time. This is where you're really crafting the story. You're making the vision very clear. And again, remember, this is the emotional part. It's what's going to really keep the audience engaged. And the final part is the now what. So now that we've gone through the clarity and context, now that we understand why it's important, it's time to move to action. And I'm often surprised with the amount of individuals that do the first part. So let's go back to our example of the all hands. I give the data points. I maybe even talk about why they're important. But then the next steps are not clear. So even thinking about that structure, what, so what, now what, utilizing that in your communications with your team, utilizing that in email communications, whether it's to team members and customers, just helps you to start to weed out the information that, although you might feel is important, it doesn't need to be added to increase the level of context. It also helps us remind ourselves that we need to be spending time in the so what. We need to consider that as leaders, that essentially we are trying to get humans to buy in to whether it's our vision, the organization's vision, and that needs to be communicated in a certain way. The last piece that I'll leave you with today, as I say, there's 6 key ingredients, but short enough time frame. Let me leave you with one more. The second one is what I call power of presence. And what I mean by that is how you deliver your message is generally as important as what you're actually saying, if not more important. So when you're in an online environment, are you looking at that camera lens? Are you utilizing your body language, your hand gestures, etc.? Are you looking to maximize the effect of pauses? Are you utilizing your tone of voice? Because if you are just reading from a script, your audience will be disengaged in a very short space of time. So we have to harness the power of presence. And we do that through emphasizing our body language and our tone of voice. Don't underestimate those key skills when it comes to your delivery of your message and your ability then to land that message with clarity, and then as a result, execution on those ideas moving forward. As always, this is a skill that is only going to enhance your leadership effectiveness, but it does take time to develop. Remember those first key ingredients, start to practice those, and don't forget that foundation. Show up as the sage, facilitate an environment where others can be the hero, and connect with that emotional job. Good luck.